Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all here at Islamabad Policy Institute. I am Mubin Jafar Mir. I work as research assistant at IPI. IPI is today conducting a webinar titled Chinese Expanding Investments in Iran and Pakistan, Prospects of Trilateral Relations. The aim of this meeting is to talk about the latest political developments that have certainly changed the decades-old status quo in the region. These developments demand a meticulous examination of emerging regional alliances with far-reaching political, geostrategic, and economic implications. Be it Sino-India standoff in Ladakh, Indian expansionist design in the region with the rise of ultra-nationalist Hindu leadership of Narendra Modi, long overdue Afghan peace process, and expulsion of India from the Chabahar port by Iran, future of China-Pakistan economic corridor, and many others. It has become the need of the hour to forge a close partnership among a triad of countries, namely Pakistan, Iran, and China, for the lasting solution of festering political crisis. Doing so would definitely act as a stepping stone towards lasting progress and prosperity of the region in the long run. IPI is looking forward to working further on issues concerning Pakistan-China relations in the future and how this time-tested friendship can play a constructive role in embracing other regional states under its umbrella for political and economic development of the region. Without any further ado, I would like to introduce our honored guest to the attendees of the webinar. Moving towards our panelists, I am sure you all know Professor Sajjad Bukhari sir. He is the founder of the Islamabad Policy Institute and is currently heading IPI as its executive director. Then I would like to move toward our first distinguished guest, who certainly doesn't require any introduction. Today we have with us Pakistan's renowned politician, top-class journalist, and phenomenal policymaker and highly acclaimed author, Senator Musharraf Sayyed, who is currently serving as chairman Senate Foreign Affairs Committee. He has also previously served as Minister of Communications in 1993 and Minister of Information and Broadcasting from 1997 to 1999. Then comes our next worthy speaker from Islamic Republic of Iran. He is Dr. Fawad Asdi Sahib. He is professor at University of Tehran and with vast experience in regional and global affairs. And then our next distinguished speaker is Dr. Jin Yangxian from China. Dr. Jin is a senior fellow at Shanghai Institute for International Relations. Let's start with the agenda of today's webinar meeting. With this, I would request Executive Director of IPI, Professor Sajjad Bukhari, to deliver his welcome. Professor Sajjad.
Senator Musharraf Sayyed, Dr. Asdi, and Dr. Rian, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to welcome you to today's webinar. In this virtual conference room, I can recognize some familiar participants. I'm sure that we are also reaching out to our new IPI friends as well. A warm welcome to you all. We are all gathered today to deliberate on a very important development taking place in the region. I mean, the progress towards the formalization of a comprehensive economic and security collaboration between Iran and China. The development will have very important effects and implications for the region and beyond. Besides learning about the developments, one of the objectives of today's discussion is to see how Pakistan can benefit from it. Pakistan's relation with China are deep and enduring. They are time tested. Meanwhile, ties with Iran, the long standing based on a very strong historical, religious, cultural, linguistic, and civilizational linkages have been greatly influenced by the regional and global geopolitical environment. This may explain why, despite numerous occasions for cooperation, the two countries could not forge forward in a big way, including the failure to increase the bilateral trade, open banking channels, start ferry service between the two countries, and undertake energy projects. I had always said that strategic convergence and trust was needed to take Pak-Iran relations forward. I believe the opportunity is arriving thanks to China, which has heavily invested in Pakistan development in shape of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, a key component of Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative. The foundation for the impending new phase in Iran-China strategic cooperation was laid during the visit of President Xi to Tehran in January 2016, soon after signing of the JCPOA, more commonly known as Iran nuclear deal. During the last 4 years, a lot of work has gone in shaping this cooperation, which envisages China investing billions of dollars in Iran over the next 25 years, and Tehran providing heavily discounted oil to Beijing. Though the cooperation between Tehran and Beijing, which is yet to be approved by Iran's parliament, and has to undergo other formalities, presents a win-win situation for both sets of national interests. Iran has been hit hard by US sanctions, and the Chinese investment could help it lessen the impact of Washington's maximum pressure campaign. Meanwhile, China needs uninterrupted supply of cheaper energy for its sustained strong economic growth. China may, through investments, especially in ports, may gain strategic advantage. So skepticism has been expressed by some about materialization of this deal, which is being described as ambitious in the presence of US sanctions because of Chinese financial use, because of the potential implications for Chinese financial institutions. Similarly, some Middle Eastern countries have been worriedly watching this development. These concerns are more due to regional politics rather than any solid business. China already has strategic cooperation agreements with a number of Arab countries and has always maintained a balanced approach in its external relations. It would therefore not do anything that would undermine Arab's relations. Nevertheless, it is certain that the deal, when materialized, could potentially alter the regional landscape in which there would be opportunities for the stakeholders in the neighborhood, though extra-regional actors may lose space to act. The big question is about Pakistan taking advantage of it. We can do so by completing the long-pending Iran-Pakistan gas pipeline project, by developing rail and roads links in the neighborhood, with the neighborhood, and by developing the bilateral trade. We need to be mindful of the reaction from US if we connect with the upcoming developments. Resisting US pressure may be difficult, but certainly not new for Pakistan, which has already endured a lot of pressure overseas. In parallel with the growing Iran-China partnership, Islamabad needs to closely follow India's departure from projects in Iran. India has lost the railway project and is on the way of losing gas field projects as well. It is a welcome opportunity for Pakistan as it removes one irritant in Pakistan-Iran relations. We need to fully exploit that opportunity as well. I believe that by participating in this webinar, we are in the right place and at the right time. Together, let us accelerate the exchange of discussion, the exchange of ideas. I'm confident that from today's discussion, you will learn more about the expected development and find newer ideas about Pakistan, how it would benefit from it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir Secretary Director IPI. He has just given his welcoming note. Actually, His Excellency Syed Muhammad Ali Hussaini, Iranian ambassador to Pakistan, has written a small piece of op-ed for IPI. So I found that op-ed very relevant to our today's discussion. So I have just taken some excerpts from them. So I think I would like to quote him just to himself. I think that's quite relevant. So I would caught His Excellency Said Muhammad Ali Hussaini's work. He writes, the Islamic Republic of Iran and China, realizing the circumstances prevailing in the international system, have decided to develop their bilateral cooperation in a 25-year horizon. This subject started during visit of His Excellency Xi Jinping, the President of the People's Republic of China, to Tehran in 2016, and during this period, generalities have been discussed and exchanged in numerous interactive sessions and meetings. This issue, which has been widely reflected in recent weeks and in political circles, can be examined from the following aspects. The Islamic Republic of Iran and the People's Republic of China are consulting on the generalities of a comprehensive document on strategic cooperation at various levels, and the dimensions of this document for cooperation have not so far reached the final conclusion. This document is a comprehensive framework of long-term and strategic cooperation in all political and economic fields, and in an equal and fair approach. There are numerous rumors about the dimensions of long-term cooperation between Iran and China. Given that no modalities have been agreed on the details of the cooperation so far, these rumors are baseless and mere political and media speculations. Some of these rumors are the result of Western media propaganda that has never happy hour promotion of political and economic relations of independent nations. It is to mention in paragraph 6 of the joint statement issued during the Chinese President's 2016 visit to Iran, it was made clear the party's willingness to conclude a comprehensive document for 25 years of cooperation. Considering that at present the People's Republic of China is one of the top political and economic powers, and the role of the Islamic Republic of Iran in regional equation is also highly valued, the development of bilateral cooperation between Beijing and Tehran can draw a clear horizon for the nations of the two countries and the region. The Islamic Republic of Iran, in accordance with its constitution, welcomes the promotion of cooperation with all countries in an equal, fair, and rational framework, and is ready to extend the dimensions of this cooperation to other friendly countries in the region in a regional mechanism. The decision of Iran and China to develop cooperation in a strategic mechanism shows the foresight of the leaders of the two countries to strengthen convergence in Asia. From this perspective, long-term cooperation between Iran and China is not only an alternative but also a smart choice in the region. This is happening at a time when the US regime, in disregard of all international rules and regulations, is creating fundamental challenges for all the independent nations of the world. The reality that encourages these nations to achieve greater socio-economic independence and to counter totalitarian unilateralism and strengthen international multilateralism. So these were the some excerpts taken from the op-ed written by His Excellency Iranian Ambassador to Pakistan. Having read out, so I will now hand over this meeting to Senator Michelle Sensei, so that he can share it. He will also share his valuable insights on the issue.
Thank you very much. In the name of the Almighty, the Lord of all mankind, Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon, and ni hao to our Chinese friends. Professor Sijal Bukhari sir, thank you for your very kind invitation. And I'm glad that the IPI, the Islamabad Policy Institute, has been a very timely initiative, because this has been a major development, probably the single most important development in our region after 9/11. And we also would like to warmly welcome Dr. Fuad Hezdi. He apparently is based in Tehran, and he will be speaking after my presentation is over. And then Dr. Jin Liang Xiang from Shanghai, he will also be speaking. So it will be a pleasure and delight to listen to friends from both our neighbors. When we speak of Pakistan, China, and Iran relations, I would like to give you a brief context. There is the geopolitical context, and there is the regional context. When we talk of the geopolitical context, we have been facing the coronavirus, the COVID-19, which has hit many countries hard. And in this regard, I would like to especially express our solidarity with all the other neighbors, especially China and Iran, who have been hit, like Pakistan, who have been victims of that. And we are also very grateful for China for the support during COVID-19. We also gave support to China, and China also gave support to Pakistan. We appreciate that very much. And I think coronavirus has also indicated which way the world is going, because by and large, the handling of COVID-19 by Asian countries, countries like China or South Korea or Singapore, among others, has been much better, more efficient than the Western countries, USA, UK, Spain, Italy, and so forth. And this also shows, in my view, that how the balance of economic and political power is shifting from the West to the East. And we feel that the 21st century is the Asian century. And in this Asian century, today, probably the most important developmental and diplomatic initiative has been launched by China's President Xi Jinping, the Belt and Road Initiative, which covers over 100 countries, and of which the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is the pivot, the flagship. So we are very fortunate that this initiative, which is there, Pakistan is there, and it's all about regional connectivity between countries and continents, driven by economy and energy, roads and railways, ports and pipelines. And this initiative is about win-win cooperation. And so what is happening between Iran and China is also part of this connectivity between different countries in our neighborhood, which want to promote cooperation and economic integration. We also feel that while these are very positive trends, we are disturbed by noises emanating from the West, especially Washington or London, which talk of a new Cold War. A new Cold War is something which we cannot accept. Asia has already suffered after that. Pakistan has been one of the biggest victims of terrorism. The US has squandered $6 trillion in an unwinnable war without end, whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's Iraq, whether it's Syria, Libya, even Pakistan was once part of it. And the result is before you, that now the US has signed an agreement with the Taliban, Afghan Taliban, on 29th, and the US has said that they will withdraw. So we feel that the use of force is no answer to the problems. And in this regard, we are also very disturbed that the Professor Sajalsa mentioned about JCPO, the Joint Comprehensive Plan between Iran and the 6 countries, P5 plus Germany, that has been put on hold because the US, under the control of various lobbies, especially the hawkish lobby and the Israeli lobby, they are trying to now create problems for this Iran nuclear treaty. We also feel that the regional developments are extremely important. There has been this recent military clash between China and India, which is provoked by India, because China is a peace-loving country. China has no aggressive designs. And we, as a neighbor of China, know about China's strength. And we feel that China did teach a befitting lesson to India. India has been like a hegemonic region, trying to bully smaller countries, including Pakistan, including the people of occupied Kashmir, including Nepal or Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. And I think that this has been a very important development, and this has also been a failure of India's policy of being very aggressive towards neighbors, big or small. We also feel that this announcement of this strategic partnership between the People's Republic of China and Islamic Republic of Iran is very positive. It augurs well for regional. And Pakistan is a neighbor of both countries. China as well as Iran. And Pakistan has a shared past with both countries. So we welcome this development, this strategic partnership, details of which are still about to come out, but we feel that this would be a positive thing because this will strengthen regional cooperation. This will stand up to US unilateral sanctions, either against Iran or pressure against China. And we have been facing those pressures in the past also on a number of issues, including once the nuclear program. So Pakistan welcomes these developments because whether it's the Afghan peace process in which Pakistan played a very critical role, and whether it's the Iran-China partnership, it secures our western borders. We have borders with Iran and Afghanistan, through Balochistan province. It strengthens CPAC because if CPAC is the flagship of the Belt and Road Initiative, then Gwadar Port in Balochistan is the centerpiece of CPAC. And CPAC is also secured. And with Iran's exit from Chabahar Port, which is 120 kilometers from Gwadar, I think that this is a better and more conducive environment for Pakistan in terms of security and also for Iran, because Iran has seen the track record of India. In 2006, when the Iran-Pakistan-India pipeline was signed, India backed out of it under American pressure, and they went for a nuclear deal with Iran. And now also, in 2016, there were two visits to Tehran, one by President Xi Jinping, one by Prime Minister Modi of India. And President Xi Jinping's visit led to this major comprehensive strategic partnership, which has been unveiled recently. While Mr. Modi had this agreement, not just with Iran, also Afghanistan. It was trilateral, and they have again backed out the American position. So we can see which countries keep their commitments, which don't. As far as Pakistan and Iran relations are concerned, we feel that we are both close. There is no fundamental conflict of interest between Iran and Pakistan. There is, in fact, a large confluence, a convergence, a congruence of interests between Pakistan and Iran. Both want their borders to be peaceful and secure. Both want to ensure that neither Pakistani territory nor Iranian territory is used by any non-state actor or at the behest of any other country against each other. Because if Pakistan has been facing terrorism abroad, and recently you have seen the report of the United Nations said that there are 6,500 Pakistani-born terrorists living in Afghanistan. It's basically referring to the TTP, Afghanistan. So we are very clear about that. And Iran has been also victim of Jundullah, Jashul Adil. We have been victim of some Balochistan groups also. So we feel that this is extremely important. Then Iran and Pakistan also feel that there should be a very clear convergence on economic cooperation, regional economic cooperation, on regional economic connectivity. And Iran is also part of the Belt and Road Initiative. Then Iran and Pakistan have a shared history, which the President has done. It's not just heritage, it's not just religion, it's also Allama Iqbal, Iqbal al-Lahori as they call it. I still remember I was a journalist and editor of a Muslim newspaper when in July 1986, the President of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Sayyid Khamenei, who is the rebel of Iran, he came to Pakistan as the guest of President Ziaullah, and he made a historic speech in Lahore on Iqbal al-Lahori, and he knew the Farsi poetry of Iqbal, the vision of Iqbal. And I think this is very important. This also is a factor in that. And when I was the Minister for Information, I especially signed an agreement with Iran, with the Irshad-e Islami of Iran. And to have this cooperation in promoting the works of Allah. Then we are also very clear that we will not be involved in any regional dispute against each other. Iran helped us during the 65 war with India, 71 war with India. And when the issue of Yemen came to Pakistan in April 2015, Pakistan refused to send any troops or be part of any conflict in the Muslim world because we feel when there is an intra-Muslim conflict involving Muslim brothers, we will not be a party. And we also both oppose hegemonism, sectarianism, terrorism, and extremism. And in this regard, I would also like to mention, since it's about Iran, that there's been a good initiative taken by President Mahmoud, former President Ahmadinejad of Iran, that he has written a letter to the Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, asking that there's giving a proposal to end the impasse on the Yemeni war. And he said there should be an international committee of Yemeni who can then focus on ending this war, because this war has debilitating and damaging. And the Muslim world cannot afford these kinds of projects. So we feel that a new world is opening up. And recently at the World Health Assembly, which was 2 months ago, President Xi Jinping of China made a speech where he talked of people-centered development. I think that should be the focus of not just China, not just Iran, not also Pakistan. That in these times of COVID-19, we have to reset our priorities. And we have to redefine them. And I think national security has to be defined more in terms of human security, health, education, good hospital facilities, issues of environment and climate change, and people-centered development. So that we all have been suffering from this pandemic in the last few months. And we hope, inshallah, we overcome those problems. That we have to now focus on ensuring the security, the lives, the health, the livelihood of our people, whether it's pandemic and other issues that can promote peace. And it is in that spirit we welcome this China-Iran initiative, and I look forward to hearing from our friends. And I would now like to request Dr. Fouad Ezdi, Professor at the Faculty of World Studies, University of Tehran. He is also on the board of the World Beyond War and Anti-War Organization chapters and affiliates in about 2 dozen countries. Dr. Fouad Ezdi, as a journalist, I have had good experience visiting Iran many times. I had meetings with Imam Khomeini also. It was my pleasure and honor. I interviewed many of your top leaders, also, and others. And I think that as a Khabar Nagar Khariji, I traveled during the 1982 when I was editor of the Muslim, when Iran was facing the aggression from Saddam's Iraq. So I went to the Abadan, to Khorramshahr, to Ahwaz, and of course, Mashhad, Isfahan, and Shiraz and other places. So with Iran, we have a very special relationship. I would say, Harish Mahbub, I hope everything is fine, and we look forward to your words of wisdom, sir.
Very good. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for the invitation. I benefited a lot from Professor Bukhari's statements, and also Senator Moshahid Hussein Sayed. And your Farsi is good. When you read Iqbal, you learn more Farsi when you read his Farsi poetries. Thank you for the invitation. IPI, I think, is doing a very good job in terms of engaging in issues that are important for the development and security of Pakistan and its neighbors. So congratulations on all the efforts that IPI is conducting. Let me start my talk by basically dividing it into 3 parts. I think the topic that we are covering has a political dimension, has an economic dimension, and has a cultural dimension. In terms of politics, we know that in recent years, China and Pakistan are getting closer to where Iran has been for some time, which is a confrontation with the United States. The pressure that China is facing from the US now, I don't think is going to go away after the election. And you may have different tactics if a new administration is in the White House. But the general anti-China policy of the United States will continue for many years to come, as far as I know. And if you have been following US politics, you know that both major parties in the United States are competing with each other to show which one is more anti-China. And this is very sad. Obviously, China and United States are two major economic powers in the world, and confrontation between countries, whether they're major powers or not, is not beneficial to anyone. But this is the fact that exists, and especially in recent days, you have seen the Trump administration engaging in reckless activities towards China. Pakistan, similarly, I think is facing difficulties with the United States. And as Pakistan moves closer and increases its partnership with China, I think these pressures will continue. And I don't think they will go away anytime soon. So given these political realities, I think the three countries that are facing these difficulties and have a common concern with regard to US foreign policy, it's only logical for them to cooperate more. And I think that is what is going on. I think the fact that China and Iran are developing their relations is an indication that leaders in both countries realize this. And the fact that China and Pakistan have been cooperating for many years provides this opportunity for a trilateral relationship between the three countries, given the fact that all three have common concerns and have common goals. So in terms of politics, increased cooperation between Pakistan, China, and Iran makes very much sense. In terms of economy, the second part of my talk, I think also there are major opportunities that exists for the well-being of the people of the three countries that we are talking about. Iran happens to be number one in terms of its gas and oil reserves combined. And given the fact that there is this level of natural resources and energy that is needed by countries that are importing energy, countries like Pakistan and China that are importing energy, it is only logical for these three countries to cooperate. As Senator Sayed mentioned, and also Professor Bukhari mentioned this too, that the pipeline that was supposed to connect Iran's gas and energy resources to Pakistan and India is not progressing. That project is not progressing as fast as it should. As it was rightly pointed out, India pulled out of that project. But there is this new opportunity, I think, for a trans-Himalayan pipeline, basically taking oil and gas available in Iran to Pakistan and then Western China. And I think that that could be a project that is obviously beneficial to China. And the reason is, as we know, And as I think I presented, the difficulties between China and United States are not going away. And one of the ways that United States has been historically causing difficulties for its adversaries have been through the needs that that country has in terms of importing stuff that they need. And given the fact that China imports about 60% of its energy from the Persian Gulf, then Persian Gulf becomes a choking point if United States wants to increase its pressures on China. And the fact, I think, is that all countries that are surrounding Persian Gulf are under US pressure and would basically succumb the pressure that they receive from the United States. They would bend to the pressure that they get from the United States, with the exception of Iran. Iran's foreign policy has been independent since the Islamic Revolution. And you can have countries surrounding Persian Gulf that would stop their economic and energy cooperations with China if they receive enough pressure from the United States. But that will not happen with regard to Iran. And so given that fact, then Iran can provide a very important service to China by having a secure and reasonably priced source of energy that is going to be present for many, many years, given the fact that Iran's reserves are quite extensive. And I think that's important for China. And obviously, we have the great country of Pakistan between Iran and China. We don't have a border with China. So being close to Pakistan and actually utilizing Pakistan's resources to engage in this type of activities would be beneficial for all three countries. And obviously, Pakistan can also benefit from Iran's energy resources and also benefit from the payment that countries usually make when they use the territory of a second country to export energy or other goods. So there's a second benefit to Pakistan because Pakistan basically is hosting this pipeline. So on economic issues, that is going to be important. Another concern that I think Professor Bukhari mentioned correctly is the issue of sanctions that Iran is facing. And Pakistan is also facing sanctions, and also China facing sanctions. But Iran's sanctions are much more developed and much more extensive. That's why they call it maximum pressure campaign. And obviously, in terms of economy, that would be very logical for Iran to make sure that there are other venues for economic engagement that the country needs, and Iran would hardly find better partners than Pakistan and China when it comes to economic issues. The third part of my talk is going to deal with cultural linkages that exists between the three countries. Senator Sayed mentioned the linkage that exists between Iran and Pakistan through the poetry of Iqbal and the extensive religious and cultural links that dates back many, many centuries. And the same thing is true with regard to China. I think the first recorded linkage between Iran and China dates back to 200 BC, about 2,200 years ago. And throughout these many, many centuries, Iran and China have had linkage. Ambassadors exchanged for many centuries. There was a disruption after the Chinese Revolution. During the Shah's time, Iran was puppet of the United States. and because US did not recognize China, People's Republic of China, Iran did not recognize People's Republic of China, and when US recognized People's Republic of China, Iran did. So we are at the 50th anniversary of Iran-China relations in the modern era. As I said, the relationship dates back thousands of years. So given this extensive cultural linkage, then obviously there is going to be plenty of room under the title of public diplomacy, people diplomacy, cultural exchanges. And the more people of these three countries know each other, the more they're going to like each other, because Eastern culture, whether it's Iranian culture or Pakistani culture or the Chinese culture, have very common elements. They share a lot of similar values. The cultures are quite close to each other. And that's going to be beneficial for everyone. And I agree that the 21st century, as Professor Sayed said, is going to be the Asian century. And since we are in the Asian century, as far as we know, then there need to be new initiatives that go beyond economic linkage, political linkage, and cultural linkage. I think we need to have military and security linkages as well. I think the three countries that we are talking about, plus Russia, given the fact that the relationship between these three countries and Russia is also good. There seems to be a need for an Asian NATO in terms of military and security cooperations. You know what happens in Europe if there is a security problem? NATO steps in and they generally resolve issues. In Asia, we have a lot of confrontations, including confrontations in the Middle East. And there is no Asian NATO, so countries like United States or some European countries find an opportunity to come to this part of the world and engage in activities that is harmful for the people and the countries of this region. So as economic linkages and political linkages and cultural linkages increase, I think there is a need for military and security linkages, and developing these linkages in line with, for example, the Shanghai Cooperation Agreement, that there needs to be some level of military involvement and agreement as well. I noticed that the presenters speak for about 15 minutes, and my 15 minutes is finished. And I'm eager to hear the comments from Dr. Jean, our friend from China. Thank you very much for giving me this time and opportunity. And thank you for providing this forum.
So should I just begin? Is my voice available? Okay, let me just start.
From China.
Firstly,
So the floor is open for you.
okay. It's always the greatest pleasure and honor to speak at such a conference. Particularly this time, it is I'm invited by IPI. I think Senator Sayed is a very good friend, and Buhari, Professor Buhari, are very good friend of our institute. I suppose that you have visited our institute, or our delegations have visited you for many times. And someone told me, you know, in my institute told me that we have very good exchanges and a very good friendship with you. It's a great pleasure. Okay, and before my presentation, I would like to give a very brief comment about China-Iran cooperation, and particularly regarding the hotly debated the 25-year plan. In China, I think we have a very famous saying, that is, if you really want to do something, if you really want to achieve something, just do it. If you do not want to achieve that purpose, if you do not want to do it, you just bring out the plan for discussion, for debates. So I would like to say it is not a good idea to bring out the plan for the discussion. Even it really exists anyway, it is still a draft. It is still a draft. So that is that is the first point I want to deliver. Okay, and about China, Pakistan, and Iran cooperation, trilateral. For my presentation, I think I'm going to deliver four parts. My presentation can be divided into 4 parts. Though I think it is not a good idea to bring out the plan out for discussion, but it is my belief that our cooperation, particularly our cooperation with Iran, is always there. I'm not talking much about China-Pakistan relations. China-Pakistan relations, yeah, we don't need to talk about it. We have a very good relation, very good cooperation in almost every ways. The first part of my presentation is that I think that there are very favorable foundations for the trilateral cooperation among China, Pakistan, and Iran. I would list 3 points. The first one is, actually, the 3 countries all have very similar thinkings about building connections in the last a couple of years or last decade. China, where we proposed the Belt and Road Initiative, and China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is entering its second stage. Well, it is entering its second stage and almost finished the first stage. The first stage actually starts and ends something like this year. Yeah, and for the first stage, we mainly focus on infrastructure connection and energy production, and energy facilities, something like that. And many projects have already been finished. I'm someone working on Iranian studies. I would like to say that according to my knowledge, in the last decades, Iran has already begun efforts to build connections. For instance, you have initiated the proposal something like a north-south corridor, southwestern north corridor, something like that. And also, for Iranians talked about the connections between the Chabahar and Afghanistan. That is part of north-south corridor. Okay, am I right? And Iran also built a railway from Kazakhstan via Turkmenistan to Iran. So, and Iran also have a lot of electricity networks, build networks linking between Iran, Syria, Azerbaijan, and you export a lot of electricity to these countries, your neighboring countries. So I think it is, we have already started some of the job. And secondly, I think that the favorable foundation is that the decision makers on our of our three countries have a strong will to push forward cooperation. I'm not coming to the detail about China-Pakistan, but China-Iran relations. As I told you in many occasions, that this time the COVID-19 fight, the joint COVID-19 fight between Iran and China actually means that China-Iran relations is becoming more and more mature. Zarif, the foreign minister, Iranian foreign minister, was the first foreign minister to express support and sympathy to China, I think in February. And also, China sent a delegation, medical delegation to Iran. That delegation is from Shanghai. That is the very, very first medical delegation China dispatched abroad before Italy, even before Pakistan. Pakistan's outbreak is not that serious during that period of time. So I think the joint COVID-19 fight suggests that we have both strong will, political will to push forward cooperation. That is the second. Thirdly, I think we three countries do not have much historic burden in the relations. So that generally speaking, relations are very good. That is the first part. The second part is that, that China-Pakistan-Iran cooperation will solve a lot of problems in the construction of Belt and Road Initiative. Firstly, the cooperation will enhance energy cooperation among the three countries. China-Pakistan are energy importers, while Iran is an exporter. Cooperation among the three will not only enhance the energy security of consumers, including China and Pakistan, but also energy security of Iran as a producer. Secondly, the cooperation could solve the problem how Iran's energy will be transported to China. Due to U.S. sanctions, the toughest sanctions is in energy area and in financial area. Because of U.S. sanctions, very few companies would like to dispatch vessels to transport Iran's oil to China. That is a big problem. A bottleneck, I would like to argue, that is a bottleneck problem. If we have pipeline connecting the three, from Iran to Pakistan to China, Iran's oil and gas can be easily transported to China. That will solve the problem of the sanctions. Thirdly, cooperation among the three will solve the problem of not only investments, but also reaching out the markets. The building industrial parks will be an essential part of China-Pakistan and China-Iran cooperation. I think for the next stage of China-Pakistan CPEC, I think China-Pakistan will build industrial parks. The industrial parks will make divisions of labels possible, and will make manufacturing more efficient. And combined, the three will also be a big market with a population with 1.3 billion. If it is extended to Iraq and Syria, the market could be much bigger. So I would argue, if we three countries can really work hard in this regard, the cooperation will benefit all the three countries. Iran and Pakistan could particularly become new engine or economic power center for the region, for the region from Central Asia South Asia, West Asia, and the South Caucasus. In many places and in many meetings, I always argue that Iran has already become a very important geopolitical center, and Iran can be an economic center. But it will depend on how Iran takes the opportunities. That I always argue that argue in that way. Thirdly, I think I'm talking about the challenges about the three cooperation. The challenges are in many ways. I would like to say, firstly, the challenges are actually mainly on the domestic, comes from the domestic politics in Iran. That is, I mean that how to build consensus about the cooperation with China at home. That is a major challenge for Iranians. For China-Pakistan cooperations, Pakistan does not have that kind of problem. For China, China does not have that kind of problem. China has a very has a high level consensus about cooperation with Pakistan, with Iran, and China has also national consensus, particularly with the relations with Pakistan. We a lot of beautiful words for Pakistan, but the biggest challenge is from Iran, whether Iran can form a kind of national consensus about its cooperation with China. It is a big challenge. And I think the second challenge is how to avoid or how to deal with the relations with a third party. Okay. Personally, I would always argue any other connections or infrastructure should be complementary with CPEC or China-Iran cooperation. But for instance, Iran, you have cooperation with India and Afghanistan about the construction of Chabahar. And Afghanistan believe that it is not safe to transport while the Pakistan. But we think that infrastructure could be complementary to CPEC or the connections of the other part of the region. But I'm worried if that construction, the construction of infrastructure of Chabahar linking to Afghanistan, if that part is not successful, India might think that it is because of challenge. It is because competition from China, from Pakistan. That is a problem. How to avoid that kind of problem? And also Saudi Arabia, the fact of Saudi Arabia should also, Saudi Arabia last year talked about joining CPEC and expressed the willingness to invest in CPEC. And but I suppose in this regard, Saudi-Iran relations, Saudi-Iran detente should be very, very important in this regard. Okay, how to deal with Saudi Arabia? Okay, that is the third part of my presentation. The fourth part, just a couple of words. Currently, it seems that we all have very strong will to cooperate with each other. I think what we need to do, the first thing is that we need to build a kind of trilateral mechanisms. Actually, as so far as I know, Iran, Afghanistan, and India, the heads of the three countries meet in 2018 or 2019 in Tehran. They talk about the connections between from Chabahar to Afghanistan. And I think that it is also very important, since it's a very good idea to build trilateral mechanisms between among China, Pakistan, and Iran. I think, yeah, we can propose as a think tank people. And I would also suggest that China-Iran cooperation, we can learn from China-Pakistan relations. China-Pakistan cooperation regarding the CPEC, I think we have, it is almost, we have almost finished the first stage. In 2020, 2021, hopefully we can finish the first stage, altogether 3 stages. We are entering the second stage. And during the first stage, we have a lot of experiences, successful practices. We also have lessons. I think with China-Iran cooperation can learn from China-Pakistan cooperation in this regard. Okay, that is what I can think about the trilateral cooperation among China, Pakistan, and Iran. I will just stop here. So I hope that I'm not exceeding the time. Thank you.
Presentation, and you mentioned the CPEC and you mentioned the Pakistan-China cooperation. I would like to point out that yesterday we inaugurated another motorway of CPEC. It's 120 kilometers. It's called the Hazara motorway, and it links up from Islamabad, 120 kilometers, and then on to the border with China. So you can see the CPEC is already a success story. And as you mentioned that with China, Pakistan, Iran, we have a convergence of interests. And in fact, we feel that countries like China and Iran, they are not just countries, they're civilizations with thousands of years history. And we also belong to the Indus Valley and Dara civilization. So this region is very rich. And Chinese monks used to come to our part of the world in the 2,500 years ago, traveling across and coming over. So the ancient Silk Road has now been revived. And we feel that the way has opened. CPEC is a success story. I used to be the chairman of the parliamentary committee in CPEC from 2015 to 2018. And we feel that this CPEC has really been important in resolving Pakistan's energy crisis. It's also been important in resolving infrastructure issues. And as you said rightly, it's now the second phase. What we face are certain common challenges, which Dr. Ford also mentioned. And when you talk of the so-called China threat or the new Cold War, I think that Mr. Fareed Zakaria has a very good article in the Foreign Affairs, which I would recommend for read. It's called The New China Scare, which came in the Foreign Affairs January 2020, and I think that that article sums up what is the American establishment thinking. They always have to look for new enemies in their focus. So I think that we should open now for questions and comments, or I'll just try to finalize that. I also feel that in the future, the trilateral economic cooperation, Iran, Pakistan, China, or China, Pakistan, Iran, these three, there's already talk of pipelines, there is talk of economic collaboration, there's talk of connectivity, and already Pakistan has connectivity with both. We have borders with Iran, where thousands of people cross the border every day. And because there are holy sites in Iran which are visited by Pakistan. And then we have a border with China. And now that has been reinforced by Gwadar. So the Gwadar port, which is part of CPEC, which is now serving Afghan transit trade, that Gwadar port can be extremely important in also being the trading linkage between Pakistan, Iran, and China, Pakistan, Iran, and Central Asia, Pakistan, Iran, Afghanistan, and China. So I think that is the way forward. It's economic cooperation. It's through the Belt and Road Initiative. And I finally would like to thank our friend in the Islamabad Policy Institute, Professor Sajjad Bukhari Saab and Mubin Saab, and it's a very good interaction, and we look forward to continuing this discussions among the think tanks to strengthen not just people-to-people relations, but also to better understand each other's issues and to strengthen our collaboration to build a better future for our region. Thank you very much. Jai Khuda Professor.
On behalf of IPI, I wish to thank Senator Shahid Hussain Sayyid, Dr. Fuad Ezdi, and Dr. Liam Shah for sparing their valuable time to be with us and share their insight with us also. We are also grateful to all the participants for being with us. I hope you found today's discussion useful. Thank you.
Thank you.